Ladies and gentlemen, MrCropper here. I have to advise you to read this piece by, Ed Powell, is it? Yes, by Ed Powell. And what do we call this piece? Is it, which one of these is the title? So there are the titles. Objectivism and an Immigration Policy of Self-Interest for America Today. The Underdeveloped, Undeveloped, and Not to Be Developed Cultures. There we go. There's the titles. Title and subtitle. I see that one's repeated there. Okay. Now, I read this whole shebang, but don't be intimidated. I'll leave a link below. Don't be intimidated by the length, because it actually only goes about 60% down, and then it becomes bibliography. Here we go, it's the bibliography. Okay. Now, this copyright claim says, this document is copyright by Ed Powell. Reproduction and transmission of this document is permitted as long as it is done in its entirety and without alteration. So, my apologies to Ed Powell. I believe that I am ameliorating the damage of violating your copyright by leaving a link, and this is basically a commercial for this. Go read this. This is good stuff. And I'd say two things about it. First of all, you're not going to be shocked by the reasoning here, because this is basically what the objectivists versus the ableftivist debate is, and he's on the objectivist side. And the ableftivists are the people we're trying to argue against. He doesn't ever say ableftivism in this essay, and it probably predates that discussion. I don't know. I don't know where they come in together. However, every time I post something about this general topic, somebody says, you've got to read this bit by Ed Powell. Most recently, I got the link from Jim Woods. So, Jim, what do you think of Ed Powell, of his argument here? What do you think of it? Because you sent me the link for it. So, do I take that to be an endorsement of what he says? Jim and I had a little, not disagreement, would it be? We spoke to each other a little bit in the comments on the subject of a right to travel. And I say right to travel within our nation. Sure, you don't have to present papers to the police as long as you're traveling within our nation. Sure, and America, supports that right or enforces that right or whatever. And do you have a right to travel willy-nilly around the world? That would be bizarre. Then we could tell Japan that they have to open their borders, and that would be bizarre. We would have to go to war with them to get them to open their borders if they've chosen to close their borders. So that would be insane for a country that protects individual rights, the rights of its citizens, and says that we don't allow people to come in from other countries, or not very many, or you can only visit. Those two things, that would not be sufficient to declare war on that country. Right? That country is not an egregious violator of individual rights because it doesn't let people come into its country. Right? So, that's my view of it. Okay. We do not have a right to travel. That's bizarre. That's insane. It's D-type, drop the context. It's almost D2. It's like nihilistic insanity. Okay, so there is no right to travel. Who would enforce such a right? Rights have to be enforced. You have a right to life, liberty, and property. Who enforces them? You do. The right to travel? That's bizarre. Now, a right to travel within our nation, of course, we erect such a right because, let's go through a 50-page argumentation about what is sovereignty of the individual. And so the individual ought to be able to roam the countryside within his nation, but to roam the whole world? A free spirit? I mean, okay, so that's bizarre. We do not have a right to travel. Where do you stand on Ed Powell? I'm asking Jim Woods now. Jim Woods, where do you stand on Ed Powell? Where do you stand on open borders? The objectosphere is ironing its laundry. We're ironing some things out here. We are straightening out the laundry. We're doing laundry. We're doing dirty laundry in public with this, aren't we? To some extent, we're airing our laundry in public of what are the objectivists talking about? What are they arguing for? Now, do we all have to be on board for it? I'll tell you what. If somebody that calls themselves an objectivist is spouting far-left, nihilist, Nazi, leftist garbage, that's a problem. That is seriously a problem. Okay? Now, ladies and gentlemen, definitely go read Ed Powell's stuff here. Stay tuned for more discussions with Zero Gravity Media. I want to discuss with him Germany and the turning of the left, no, the turning of the right, of the alt-right, from D-type to M-type. Those are two things I want to discuss with Luke. I don't know when that'll happen. James Clark Maxwell, some guy who did a video about MGTOW, he wants to speak with me, and maybe we'll be doing that at the end of this week or something. A longtime fan of mine who wants me to play this game called King of Legends or something like that, or Steel Fortress or something. He wants me to play these games. He says that he likes Hayek, and Hayek was a development from Kant, so he considers himself Immanuel Kant, a Kantian. He considers himself a Kantian. I would like to speak to him about that. He's a longtime viewer of MrCropper, big fan of mine, but he's in favor of free economics, and he thinks he's a Kantian. So I want to speak to him about that. More discussions with Onar. Those are always great. His application of DIM to objectivism and to China, and other stuff. So there we go. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Patreonize me if you support what I'm doing and want to see more videos from me. Thank you for those of you who sent various links and things that have gotten my channel to this point, because when I first came back to YouTube, I wasn't exactly sure what's going on or even what the objectivist scene was. I was fascinated by Tu and Rucka, and being a couple of new characters on the scene. And so now my channel's moved in this direction. I'm reacting with who I am to what the situation is. That's the dynamic going on here. Everybody has to react with who they are to what the situation is. And I'm just doing what I am doing because of who I am. So here we are. If you support me, if you want to see me do it more, and you think what I'm doing is important and good, then please patronize me at some level, $5 or $10 a month. Thank you, MrCropper out.